My name is Ole Armstrong Dirks, and I am a portfolio strategist at Viable Cities. And today I'll be the facilitator of this meeting. And it's now about actually a bit more than 1.5 months before the deadline in the open call, the very first phase of the challenge. So I hope that this webinar will be useful for you when planning for your application. And that we'll today hear from some of the partners that you see on this slide about the Climate Smart Cities Challenge. But we also want you to share your thoughts. And the partners that you see here are Teknikföretagen, Viable Cities, UN Habitat, Smart Cities Sweden, Vinnova, the Swedish Energy Agency, and the Committee for Sweden's Participation at Expo 2020 in Dubai. As you may see, all organizations except UN Habitat and the Challenges are Swedish, and this is an initiative that originated from Sweden, but it has no global limits. The meeting today is focusing on applying for the open call. We'll walk through the most important aspects and we'll have the opportunity to share some recommendations. It will also be a chance for you to ask questions directly to us, organizers of this challenge. So please feel free to use the chat on YouTube to write comments, as I see as many of you has already done. I also want to inform you that this meeting will be recorded and available online later. So, but before any more background information, let's have a look at today's agenda. So first we'll have some introductions from Viable Cities, Teknikföretagen, and UN Habitat. And after that, we'll hear from Nesta Challenges about the open call and also dig a bit deeper on the criterion for selecting cities. We'll have a session here on framing an open innovation challenge. We would like you to share your tips, but we also have a panel, including Dr. Jesper Vassell, but also here for the panel are Stephen Bland and Kathy Notstein, to get their reflections on what they heard you write in the YouTube chat. But first, Jenny Kato, you are head of trade and sustainability at Teknikföretagen, one of the partners behind this initiative. Can you tell us a bit more about why we do this and the background to the Climate Smart Cities Challenge?
Yes, thank you, Ole. So my name is Jenny Kato and I represent Teknikföretagen, where I'm head of trade, sustainability, but also strategy as of today, actually. And we are one of the largest industry organizations in Sweden, and we represent somewhat 4,200 tech companies and solution providers. Of course, Sweden, as well as the rest of the world, is facing major societal challenges, but we also see a lot of possibilities. New technology, new business models can actually enable us to tackle the greatest challenges of our time. And we strongly believe that technology and innovation in this co-creation process can contribute to make the world a better place. We just need to connect. So when Teknikföretagen partnered up with the Swedish Expo Committee for the World Expo in Dubai 2020, then postponed until 2021, for obvious reasons, about a year ago, we wanted to contribute with something greater than ourselves. So together with our partners, which you already mentioned, Viable Cities, yourself, UN Habitat, the Swedish Innovation Authority, Vinnova, the Swedish Energy Agency with their initiative, Smart City Sweden, we actually came up with this concept of a global, and also Nesta, of course. We came up with this concept of a global innovation challenge, focusing on cities all around the globe, connecting the challenges of becoming a climate neutral, smart and sustainable city with cutting-edge technology and knowledge within the tech industry that we represent. We want to make this bridge.
Thank you so much, Jenny. And also we have with us Stephen Bland, and Stephen is a climate change and innovation specialist at UN Habitat. Can you tell us a bit more about UN Habitat and what you hope to achieve with this initiative?
Yeah, thank you, Ole. It's really great to see so many of you on this webinar. Welcome. As Ole introduced, I'm Stephen Bland. I work for UN Habitat. Our mission is, or our vision is, a better quality of life for all in an urbanizing world. And we work with national governments, with local governments in many different countries around the world to support them in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals and the New Urban Agenda, which is the agenda that was agreed by all member states at the UN, that UN Habitat has the responsibility to support the implementation of. And we're really excited about being part of this this initiative, this project, for a number of reasons. Firstly, climate change is one of our big strategic priorities at UN Habitat. It's one of 3 pillars of our work in our new strategic plan. And we are seeing increasingly the mainstreaming of climate change issues into every aspect of the support that we provide to local governments and to national governments on sustainable urbanization. So for us, extending this work, partnering with more cities as part of our climate change efforts is really one of the big priorities of our agency. And secondly, a kind of new priority for us is innovation. And, innovation can be a bit of a buzzword out there. It's used a lot by many different people. And we really want to try and demystify innovation, particularly with our partners in the Global South, to, realize that the accessibility of taking an innovative approach to any problem, and that really is our biggest opportunity now. I think many of the pieces are falling into place for sustainable urbanization, for sustainable cities. And we know we have the technologies, we increasingly have more finance flowing. It's about the way in which we do things, which is so important now. And we need this kind of innovation in process and in methodology to help us get to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, which are, pressing and of increasing importance for us all. So it's the focus on climate change, the focus on innovation, 2 big priorities for us, and this process on collaboration in new ways, which we think is sort of the final key, the final piece of the jigsaw, in order for us to achieve our collective sustainable development goals. So thanks for having us as part of this initiative, and we really look forward to working with you and look forward to the rest of the call too. Thanks, Ollie.
Thank you so much, Stephen. We're very glad to work together with you and Habitat, along with the other partners in this initiative. I can also say a couple of words about Viable Cities. We are a strategic innovation program in Sweden with a focus on smart, sustainable cities. And our mission is to transition to climate neutral cities by 2030, with a good life for everyone within planetary boundaries. And Viable Cities is a sort of catalyst for new forms of cooperation between cities, industry, academia, research institutes, and civil society. And we fund projects that have great potential to reach the mission of climate neutral cities. And with Climate Smart Cities Challenge, we see this as a really important way for us to find challenges and barriers that are in the way for the mission. And we look forward to team up with even more partners all over the world to meet these challenges and overcome the hinders in order to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while creating thriving communities. So Kathy, you can change, thank you. So by now, you have most likely familiarized yourselves with the challenge website. So in this webinar, we will not go through everything about the challenge in detail. It's more about the applying for the open call. So a bit technical webinar today, but there are a couple of things worth mentioning here. Here are 5 aspects worth knowing about the Climate Smart Cities Challenge. We want to address the most, as I mentioned, important barriers to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and at the same time create thriving communities. And the social dimensions are important for this initiative. The formats we use is an open innovation competition that in a later phase will invite solutions that can be tested and scaled for further implementations in cities. So this is the first step. And this, as we see it, is an opportunity for cities, which I think many of you that participate in this webinar represent to participate as implementation partners. We will develop quite a lot next year together with the selected 3 cities or the shortlist, and the cities will work closely with us around their specific problems to design the competition and plan for further implementation. So that is the next step. The World Expo in Dubai, it will be an important profile raising opportunity for the launch, and we'll connect it as much as possible to the Expo, not at least from fall 2021. So Jenny from Teknikföretagen, do you want to comment anything about the values of participating as a city in this challenge?
Well, by joining this competition, you as a city representative will be connected to a pool of solution providers competing to solve your specific challenges. And you will also, if you get selected, be supported by a team of experts around your specific challenge, get access to potential investors, and be able to learn from peer cities. And as Ole mentioned, you will also be featured in the World Expo 2021 in Dubai, where the great finale and the prize ceremony will take place. So it's a great opportunity.
And we also, thank you so much, Jenny. And we also hope that the selected cities will sort of get a strong momentum for the initiatives in the cities that are important for change, and also to inspire others to do the same. So we expected quite a lot of sharing in this initiative. So we can, thank you, Kathy. So we're focusing on cities, as you well know by now, but Stephen, what can we say about why focusing on cities makes sense for climate change and climate smart cities?
Yeah, thank you, Ole. Well, it may not come as a surprise, seeing as I come from UN Habitat, which is the UN agency responsible for urbanization in cities. But for us, this is the obvious place to focus our energies and attention. We're in the biggest migration in human history, from rural to urban areas. Approximately 55% of the world's population now live in cities, and that grows every year. And UN Habitat's perspective on that is that this trend is unstoppable, and it's rapid. And so regardless of our different preferences for where we might like to live, and some people romanticize the continuing to try and move people back to rural areas to try and stop this tide of urbanization. Our perspective is that it is something we have to manage, and importantly, it holds a lot of power if we can harness it for social and environmental goods. And we see in cities a lot of opportunities and also a lot of challenges when we agglomerate in that way so many people, goods and services together. Cities become these hubs of creativity and innovation, exciting places to be, but they also tend to concentrate risks and problems. And that's also the case for climate change, where we see, not only are cities the drivers of increasing carbon emissions through the sort of consumption of goods and services and energy in cities, making them responsible for a large percentage of our global emissions. They're also centers of high amounts of economic risk to the impacts of climate change and social risk from the impacts of climatic events. So they are the hubs, if you like. They're on the front line of the climate change challenge, but also by their inherent nature, where they bring people together, they are the place where we can really see big opportunities as well. And so for us, cities are an obvious place to look. It's important to mention that perhaps that, cities is often used to describe very different contexts. And, this challenge is open to all types and sizes of cities in all parts of the world. The eligibility criteria don't have a definition on size or anything like that. So it's really open, even if you're a smaller town, perhaps not called a city in your country. Cities here is used in a generic sense to indicate a human settlement of some relevant size. And so, yeah, we really are excited to work with local governments, particularly on this, who have a huge responsibility when it comes to climate change. Local governments are really on the front line as well. And so we really think that when we're looking to tackle the issue of climate change, this is the place to be. This is the place where the solutions will be found. And that's why this challenge is so timely and also exciting. So back over to you, Ollie.
Thank you so much, Stephen. And we'll already by now seen a big interest in the Climate Smart Cities Challenge, and it also comes with responsibility for us to set our processes in place. And we are teaming up with Nesta Challenges in order to have a great challenge process. And Nesta Challenges, they are experts across the life cycle of challenge prizes. So therefore, I'm happy to introduce Kathy Nostein, the head of Future Cities at Nesta Challenges. And Kathy, can you tell us a bit more about the process ahead?
Great. Yes, thanks, Ole. Really pleased that we're a part of this. So, yep, my name is Kathy Nostein. I'm the head of Future Cities at Nesta Challenges, which is a unit of Nesta, which is the Global Innovation Foundation. We're based out of London, but we work everywhere. And we're focused on solving some of the world's most pressing problems. And we're experts in designing and delivering challenge prizes specifically. So quickly, I'll highlight the timeline here, which you've likely seen on our website. And I'll go into the details of the open call and what we're looking for. So as you can see, the open call is live now. It launched a few weeks ago. The deadline to enter is on the 22nd of January next year. So we'll be focusing on that now. But I wanted to lay it out for you to see what has already been described as far as the overall process for the challenge of what comes next. So after the entries are received, after the 22nd of January, we'll go through an assessment process, judging against the criteria that I'll describe in a minute, to shortlist cities down to the top 20 cities in early March 2021. And then from March through October, we'll be in conversations and challenge design to get from those 20 cities that were shortlisted down to the top 3. And those 3 city-based challenges will be launched in October at the World Expo in Dubai. And then moving forward in early 2022, we'll be announcing the solution providers that will be working with those 3 cities. And then the challenge, the implementation of those solutions and the challenge phase will last from 2022 into 2023. So that kind of gives you an overview of what this entire landscape looks like. And here we are at the very beginning in this first phase. So I'll go into, like I said, I'll go into some of the details of the open call. Hopefully this will answer some questions, but we've got plenty of time for questions at the end as well. But the purpose here of what we're looking for is we want you to tell us about your city's aspirations to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while creating thriving communities. The application is live on our website. You can check it out at challenge.org/climate-smart-cities. As I said, the applications are due the 22nd of January, and then top 20 cities will be shortlisted, and ultimately we'll be going to work with 3 cities to run challenges. What we are looking for is we want to hear about challenges that in your city, or a specific challenge in your city, that if it was solved, it would help to reduce or offset greenhouse gas emissions, first and foremost, and simultaneously promote other sustainability and livability goals in your city. We're interested in hearing about a problem that is specific and solvable in the near term. That this is the best way to kind of structure a challenge around something that has a clear goal. And meaning that potential solutions could be introduced, adapted, and scaled within the next 5 years or so. We're looking for implementable challenges that lend themselves to implementable solutions. Interventions can be really, really varied. We've got some examples on our website. We could talk about examples, but we don't want to be too prescriptive about the types of challenges we're looking for. But to kind of give you a sense of it, there could be interventions that stretch across multiple sectors. Could be things related to urban form and physical design, related to your local transport system, related to circular economy goals, food production and distribution, energy systems, housing. As you can imagine, as you would all know, there's plenty of different sectors that have an impact on greenhouse gas emissions. So we're really interested in hearing about a specific challenge related to, some of these types of examples that can help to improve your city while reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And just to note that carbon negative challenges like green space development, that kind of thing, would also be within the scope. So I'll talk through the criteria. We've got 3 main criteria that we're looking for in order to suss out what are the types of challenges that would best be solved through an open innovation competition. So the first one being, how is it suitable for designing an open innovation competition around your challenge? Something that's got a clear goal, that cities would be interested in working with a variety of different types of partners coming from different angles or different approaches is really important. Something that would benefit from having new people work on it. So bringing in expertise from other fields or from other contexts. A type of challenge that can create business opportunities, that could attract new people to work on it, that would have some kind of a route to procurement perhaps, some kind of a way that would motivate actors, particularly new actors coming in from different backgrounds or different expertise, to want to work on this problem and to attempt to solve it. We're looking for challenges that would support new work. So not just funding existing projects or initiatives or programs, but how can this be move the needle to create progress in the field. And we're looking for challenges that can lend themselves to solutions that would lead to a sustainable business model. So something that's got a route to commercialization. The second criterion that we're focused on is the potential for impact, for scale, and for innovation. So first and foremost, would solving this problem make a difference? Does it have an impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions? Would be really curious to hear if you've got metrics that you'd like to track, what kind of ambition you have around this, and how you've thought about measuring that. We also want to know if solutions would be feasible in the near future. A challenge that can be solved and that's got some kind of solution, some kind of route to implementation. And then third, we're really interested in the transferability and scalability and adaptability of potential solutions. So we're curious if you can describe to us how your challenge is relevant in other cities as well, in other contexts and other geographies, how solving that challenge can support solutions that are relevant for other places as well. And then our third criterion that we're looking at is your capacity to partner and how we could work together. Because we're seeking cities that will partner with us to run a challenge in your city. So we're curious to know if you can devote time and resources to partnering with us. This could mean a variety of things. It could mean political capital and support to running this challenge together. Human capital, if you've got staff time that can dedicate resources to helping us run this challenge and work with your local partners. Financial capital, perhaps, to help run it. We'd be curious to hear about how you would envision collaborating with us, what perhaps agencies within your city, even specific people that would be the point person who we would work with, and just what that relationship might look like from your perspective. We want to know if your city has a good understanding of this problem. Does it link into city goals? Is this part of your overarching city plan? Is this part of your sustainability strategy? How does this link into what you're trying to achieve? Big picture in your city? What do you already know about the problem? Why it hasn't been solved so far? What potential solutions might look like? What are some of the barriers? And just get a sense of what your thinking is around all of those things. We're anticipating that a challenge in your city would most likely require a real world test bed. So that can mean a variety of different types of things. It could mean a physical space for actually testing and iterating on solutions. But it doesn't have to be a physical test bed. It depends obviously on the nature of your challenge. But it could also be something like access to data sets, access to city-owned assets, regulatory permission to test out an innovation. Again, we want to hear from you about how you would kind of approach testing, how you would approach that collaboration among users, among innovators, among regulators, among policymakers, if relevant, and the public on developing something that would have an impact in your city. And then finally, I want to mention that we're looking to work with a diverse portfolio of cities around the world. I mean, we only have spots for 3 cities, so I know that's really limited. I know that we've laid out a lot of what we're looking for from a city, but we're not putting kind of quantitative measures on that or quantitative threshold, because we understand that resources vary according to the size of your city and the where you are in the world, and kind of that things are going to look different in cities that are in a more developed context and those that are still more of in a developing kind of context. So we're keen for you to kind of present to us what you think is possible, and have a look at how we can work with a diverse portfolio of cities that will have varying capabilities to deliver any kind of resource. A note on our eligibility criteria. So we welcome applications that are partnerships, but we do need you to name a lead organization. The lead applicant can be from the public sector or the private sector. We're anticipating that most lead applicants would be cities or the equivalent kind of local government. But we're open to applications that are led by a private sector organization that's got responsibility for delivering public services. But we would want to see, make sure that any application would need to have the relevant city or the local authority or municipal government as a partner in the application, and that you've got that kind of political buy-in and that support for moving forward with this. And as Stephen mentioned earlier, we're not setting a minimum threshold on the size of a city. We're using city in a very loose term. We know that every country has kinds of different measures and sometimes different terminology, but we're open to partnerships among perhaps several local governments, if that makes sense for your challenge, if it's something to be delivered at the metropolitan level. And if you've got smaller places, towns and villages, we very much welcome that. So don't get hung up on the definition of the city, because we don't have a hard and fast definition that we're going by here. And I think with that, I'll hand it back over to Ole to talk about a little bit more about perhaps some types of challenges.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Kathy, for this. I think it was really clear, at least from my end. But if there are any questions that this has raised, then please feel free to use the chat. We'll save the questions for the last 10-15 minutes to answer jointly. So thank you, Sophie and Alex, to already now have sent in a couple of questions. So in the Climate Smart Cities Challenge, we want to hear about specific challenges and problems and barriers that could be introduced, adapted and scaled within the next 5 years. For example, the following that you see here on the slide are mentioned in the FAQ, which you can see also on the challenge website. We are interested in hearing about challenges that, if solved, would not only reduce or offset emissions, but would also promote other sustainability and livability goals. So this can, of course, be quite complex to define challenges. And many of you have probably heard the famous Einstein quote that if he had an hour to solve the problem, he'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. And in this initiative, we will use almost a year to find the right problems or challenges to focus on. But as I said, it is hard, and therefore we hope to hear a bit from you, some best practice examples, what to consider when defining challenges that are relevant in the city context. So we can change the slide here, Kathy. We'd like to use you to share your key recommendations and experiences when it comes to defining challenges in relation to what you have heard about in this open call. So we'll use the YouTube chat function for this short exercise, and I'll ask you to think for a minute or so, and then just share it in the YouTube chat. I think it's a maximum 200 characters, so that would be a quite short recommendations that is possible. So I'm typing in the question there as well. But while we wait to get some input from our audience, Kathy, can we sort of discuss this a bit? Are there any recommendations that you would share? I mean, you mentioned some that could be turned into recommendations, but any other thoughts that you think the city representatives should be aware when defining the challenges now?
Yeah, one thing I would advise is, well, first to have a look at Nesta Challenge's practice guide, which goes into more detail about what makes a good challenge and how we think through the criteria. So I think we can pop that into the chat because it hits on kind of a number of different interesting aspects of a challenge prize design. One thing that I think would be helpful to think about is who owns the challenge. So by that we mean, if you've got something that is a concern overall for the city, but if there are particular kind of stakeholders, particular end users who would be affected by whatever it is the challenge you're trying to describe, or particular partners that you think would be relevant. So I'd encourage you to kind of think a little bit outside the scope of, say, City Hall, or kind of outside the scope of sort of climate policy or sustainability policy, and think more about problem holders or problem owners, as well as the end users, in particular segments of the population that would be affected by the problem being solved. So that I think could help to reveal to you kind of the aspects of the things I was talking about, like the impact, metrics, how you would think about partners that you might want to bring into the process. You don't have to feel compelled to have a full stable of partners lined up necessarily for the open call to submit the application, but I think having a think through about who those affected parties are and kind of the relationship to it, and maybe putting some of that into your description, it could help you to kind of come to better defining the challenge.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for reasoning about that, and yes, the sort of the need order perspective is really important in this. But is there also something you could say about sort of considering the solution providers, so sort of taking into account whether the challenge is suitable for new or unusual innovators to work on the problem?
Yeah, that's a great point, great question too. Because as we said, we think that what really lends itself to great challenges and can find some creative solutions is by designing something that can appeal to unusual suspects. That's what we think is the value of having a challenge prize, is that it's not aimed at necessarily industry incumbents or kind of those who have been working in this from a particular perspective for a while, because that's kind of the point, is that to pull up something that's a challenge that hasn't been solved and to make it attractive to a new perspectives coming in from other industries. I mean, for example, some of the prizes that we've run in the past have been about bringing in people from AI or with tech expertise to solve a problem that traditionally hasn't been seen as like an AI or a tech problem. So something like, for example, we have a challenge around addressing lower limb paralysis and essentially creating a next level kind of support for people who have disability constraints, but using expertise from sectors that typically haven't really worked in that sector. So it's thinking about framing a challenge around what are the outcomes you want to achieve rather than what is the path to get there, because that's the best part, is we can be surprised about new approaches and paths that hadn't been considered before.
Perfect. So thank you so much. And we also received a couple of suggestions in the chat. So Kathy, if you can switch to the next slide, please.
Yep. Sorry.
So I'm just gonna double check one thing, just a moment. Yes, I know that we had some problems, including Jesper earlier, Jesper Vassell from KTH Global Development Hub. I'm just going to check in with you, Jesper, to see if you're here joining us on this webinar. Hi, Jesper.
Hi there. I had a little bit of a network problem, but I'm back now.
Great that it works, and right on time for this chat session as well. So we have been going through the Climate Smart Cities Challenge in general, and Kathy, she sort of just reflected a bit on advice, recommendations on framing an open innovation challenge. And I think we, if Kathy, Stephen, and Jesper, if we take a couple of minutes to sort of give sort of your key recommendations. Perhaps there is something that you want to pick up from what you've seen in the chat on recommendations, or anything else that you think is really important when now defining the challenges that are used for the application in this first phase of Climate Smart Cities Challenge. Stephen, do you want to start with some reflections from your end?
Sure. I think there's a phrase that our executive director uses a lot, and this was from her time when she was a mayor in Malaysia, and her catchphrase there, if you like, was she didn't believe in public-private partnerships, but public-people-private partnerships. So she always made sure that the citizen was a part of any any public-private partnership. And so I think that's one sort of recommendation from UN Habitat, is to really, as you're defining your challenge, really, make it clear what the citizen engagement or citizen component issue is of the challenge, and how are people affected, how might they be able to benefit, and how might they be able to be involved in this. So for us, that's a really important, there's actually 4 Ps, not 3 Ps in that this kind of partnership approach that this challenge process encourages. The other reflection, perhaps from the climate change perspective, is the importance of embedding this in an understanding of your wider strategic climate change approach. If you as a local government have one, and maybe this is a topic that you're approaching quite recently, quite new to you, which is also fine. But if you have a wider climate change sort of action planning process or strategic planning process, it would be important to reflect how this project fits into that wider picture, because there are different ways to tackle climate change at the local government level. A project-based approach can yield real benefits, and particularly where maybe there isn't capacity to really work on climate change in a more strategic sense, but taking the opportunity to implement pilot projects in different sectors to just get the ball rolling and to show citizens and politicians, this is what this is all about. So that can work. But also what's important is to try and, as I said, embed it in the wider strategic planning process of the municipality. So I think as you write about the challenge, we'll also be looking to see how does this fit into that bigger picture, and how can this project not just deliver how could, solving this challenge not just deliver on a small sort of project envelope, but actually deliver on the wider goals of the municipality, particularly when it comes to climate change. So that's 2 quick reflections.
Very valuable, Stephen. Thank you so much for that. So Jesper Vassell, Director at the KTH Global Development Hub. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think there are a couple of things when defining challenge which I believe are very important. One of them is to define a challenge as a desired change rather than a problem. And why is that important? Well, simply because it makes the challenge definition as open as possible, and it doesn't imply a particular type of solution or anything when you do that. And by making the challenge definition very open, you actually open up for the more sort of creative interpretations and and also the more creative solutions, which is good because it may make the challenge look more sort of appealing to a broader target audience, actually. And secondly, when you do that, you also emphasize the fact that the point of having a challenge and addressing a challenge is not just to merely come up with a solution. You want actually to come up with an implemented solution to it, which means that you think about the change, which means that you naturally will also consider who will have to be involved in making this solution implemented so that it actually can deliver value. I mean, merely coming up with a solution really doesn't provide value to anyone unless it actually becomes implemented. It's only then it becomes valuable to the beneficiaries of it.
Thank you so much, Jesper, and thank you again, Stephen. Kathy, any other comments or thoughts from you that you'd like to add?
Maybe just the last thing I'll mention is, I referred to it before, is this idea of testing and iterating, particularly in the public realm. As we mentioned, on our website, that we're keen to understand how a particular challenge could be, how innovators would be able to work in an innovation test bed in your city. As I said, that can mean a lot of different things, so don't get hung up on a specific definition. But we think there's a lot of value in test beds or engaging the regulators, engaging policymakers, but most importantly, engaging the public in seeing how a new technology can be introduced, how it would work in a city context, what are some of how that can be used in a way to support this kind of co-creation or co-design between engaging the public and supporting and commenting on, if you will, kind of an innovation as it's being developed, the innovators kind of taking that feedback on board, being able to redesign or shape how their innovation is eventually going to come to market, with that comment from the public and with the regulators in particular being able to observe and build some trust in a new innovation, and how the regulatory landscape might need to change in order to support that in the longer term.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kathy. We also heard some recommendations here from the YouTube chat. Sophie Gears Arikans just wrote, when defining a challenge, consider what the goal is and ensure you can measure progress, so you know when the challenge has been overcome. We've heard from LM Holmberg, make sure that the challenge does not include a hint regarding the solutions to keep an open mind. And we've seen more and also hear from Åsa Minos, be clear about who will benefit when the challenge is addressed. So I think perhaps we will even gather some of these advice and send out or put on the website at a later stage. Feel free to keep sharing some suggestions in the chat if you wish. But for now, Kathy, if you change picture again. Thank you so much. So we used the last 10 minutes of this webinar to look at some of the questions that we received in the chat. We'll also save the chat and comment on it later if there are things that we do not have the time to answer here, or that we feel is a bit unclear still. So we have one question that came in quite early that I think could be relevant to discuss, and it is, what is required in terms of organization, time and resources from the participating cities? And here I'd like to ask my partners in this webinar to join in and answer. And as you saw from the presentation from Kathy, this was part of the criterion that we will look at, although we do not really have an exact number. So one general thought here is that we would expect quite a lot when it comes to the next year, but also in 2021 for further implementation of the solutions. So probably a team from you, but also partnering organizations that you team up with. Here in this webinar call, any other comments on this when it comes to what is required in terms of organization time and resources from the participating cities?
Yeah, I could say something if that's all right. Is that I do know it's really difficult to not know when we're not putting out kind of minimums. But I would think about it sort of practically about the challenge that you're looking to solve, and if you're partnering with your city, that at a minimum, you'd want to have some staff people that had some time that was devoted to supporting with running the challenge. I mean, there'd be practical things to think about, setting up meetings and workshops and working with stakeholders and bringing in partners from your side. So at a minimum, I would think that would require a bit of human resources to run the challenge and kind of be the partner and be the point person with us. But I'd encourage you to think about the type of challenge that you need to have solved. Perhaps, again, look at our practice guide and maybe look at some examples of other challenges that are out there to think about this element of testing or piloting and what might be needed to what the city might be able to offer in terms of testing and piloting processes, what you think might be needed on your side. On the application form, which is on our website, and you can see a PDF of it ahead of time before you start filling it out, so you can start to figure out how you might want to approach it. There is a question about this where we're looking for kind of description of how you would approach resourcing. So have a look at that question and think about how you might start to craft an answer to it.
And one thing that we perhaps should do also from the organizing partners to think a bit about when there will be sort of most chunks of work that we expect for the coming couple of years. So that might help planning a bit as well. Any other thoughts on that? Okay. So another question that we got was the following. Can neighboring cities form a consortium and submit a joint project? So we have an open channel that we discussed, and I haven't seen a no in there from my partners, and I agree that there would not be a hinder, perhaps even the opposite, that could be valuable. Who knows? But to be sure, I'm asking the question: does anyone think that it shouldn't be like forming a consortium to submit a joint project? No, so that is fine. Another question that we got is if a country or a region is identified by the European Commission as a target within the Just Transition Fund, is that an obstacle for applying? I wouldn't see that it is a problem. No. Then we have another question, and it's the following. If the city is not able to cover all the costs of the proposed solutions, will there be grants provided or other resources? Kathy, what is your comment on that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So at this time, we're not able to commit to any funding being available for cities that are applying for the open call. The offer to cities that are able to participate is this opportunity to partner to run a challenge and then to invite innovators in to solve the solution in your city. So unfortunately, there's no funding associated with the open call. It's something that the partners who are behind this, we can take that away and have a look at developing any resources to support cities down the line, but we can't publicly commit to that right now because that's not available at the moment. But if it is relevant and you're developing a partnership with other entities, like I said, we're very open to partnership applications, and if that requires some resources from others who can help to contribute to a consortium, having the operating expenses to be able to be a partner, then that we certainly don't object to that.
And we'll definitely look at the needs in relation to funding and see if that's something we look into with the joint process as well. So we'll be able to get back to that that question of funding as well. So we also got a question here if it's possible to submit more than one challenge. Anyone from the partners here that want to comment on that? Kathy?
Yep, I would say I think we are we're really happy to see submissions for more than one challenge. At the end of the day, we'll choose 3 to work with, so we wouldn't choose more than 1 per city, right? Because that would be pretty unfair. But if you've got a couple different challenges in your city and you want to approach, you have a couple different things that you'd like to approach, you'd like to put forward more than 1 for consideration, that's fine. Please do complete a separate application for each challenge so we can keep them straight and keep them organized.
And also, can NGOs be partnering in the application?
Yep, yeah, no problem with that.
Really good. So have I missed any questions? There were a couple of that was pretty much the same, but have I missed any important questions here now? Got the message that those should be covered, but as you see, we also have an email address here, climatesmartcities@nesta.org.uk. So please feel free to use that email address at any time to send us questions that you may have about applying for this open call or the future plans for the Climate Smart Cities Challenge. So you can change the picture, Kathy. So these are some key information just to sum up now. And the applications that will close on 22nd of January next year at 5 p.m. in GMT time. And you see here also the online application form on the challenge website. And as I just mentioned, you can use the email address climatesmartcities@nesta.org.uk. Next slide, please.
That might be the end of it. Yep.
That was the end of it. So that's really good. Thank you so much again for participating in this webinar. And thank you to all the partners and also to Jesper for giving your advice and information about the Climate Smart City Challenge. I hope that the last hour has been giving you a better picture of the initiative and that you've gotten some new ideas on what it takes to define a challenge. So with that, thank you so much again and have a nice day. Bye-bye.